Hello! Today we'll be looking at what's in this little brown box from Eachine. But just before we get into that, a quick reminder, please like or dislike this video if you didn't like it. Comment down below, don't forget to subscribe, and if you can find that little bell icon, click it, it'll tell you when I'm uploading stuff. So, what we have in here is a camera from Eachine, and it's called the White Snake. So it's available with either a 2.1 or 1.8mm lens. This is the 2.1mm version, and inside here is a camera which looks like that, and I would call it a sort of regular sized camera. It's certainly not a nano. But it's not huge either. Nice old big lens there. I don't know if they call it White Snake simply because it's got a white body. But let's take a closer look at what's inside. We'll go to close up to do that. Then what we'll do is obviously put it on a quad, we'll fly around and we'll see what it does in low light. It hasn't mentioned low light performance specifically, it just says it works with minimum of starlight illumination. So as long as it's not completely dark, let's see what sort of picture we get. Anyway, let's see what's in the box, go to close up.
Okay, so let's get the little White Snake out of the box and see what we got here. We've got some packing material, and we've got the camera itself, and as you can see from the back here, we've got the normal voltage 5 to 30, so that's up to 6S, ground, video, and then 2 pins for the OSD board. As I said, this is the 2.1mm lens. It looks pretty standard. And under this foam part, we've got the following bits. Some instructions, which is kind of interesting. See, this bit makes sense. The other side seems to be about connecting it to a DVR board, which we haven't got anything like that, which is a bit weird. Anyway, what else we got? Lens cloth, always useful. Can't tell you the amount of times I pick up moisture on the lens and stuff, although we try and wipe it off. We've got the little OSD board and a connector for that. And we've got a connector for the camera which goes to 2 little servo type leads, which we can obviously cut off. That is pretty nice soft material, and we've got some screws here for mounting, although we don't actually get a mount point for it, but we'll have to figure out that from somewhere else. Bit of a weird omission, I have to say. This is probably going to go on this quad, which I generally use just for swapping out cameras and VTXs and stuff. So yeah, we'll swap this out. We'll see what we need to do to get that in. Obviously we've got some mount points already, although this is it the same size? Same size, should go on alright. So let's get on with that next. Okay, so we got the White Snake mounted in. Didn't have any mounting hardware, and I've borrowed this little black surround from a Foxeer camera. We've got temporarily the little OSD board set up, so I can just show you what's on there and see what I need to set up to sort the camera out. So I'm going to pop that there. I'm going to pop Pickle Rick down as our subject to film, and let's turn on and record what we got. You'll notice the props are on. This is okay as far as I'm concerned. I'm linked up to a transmitter that's on, and this is a quad I trust. It's not just going to suddenly go off. It's not like I'm connected to a computer where I'm not in charge of the props. There is the quad. There's Pickle Rick. Let's quickly go through and see what we've got in this, and I can't tell which way is up. Just press the button. So we've got the normal auto exposure set to auto. White balance is auto white balance. Day night set to color. Image enhance, so contrast, sharpness, VDNR. These are all pretty normal things. I just wanted to see what's on the menu. I'm not going to go through them all. So on video, this is set to PAL. You can obviously switch it to NTSC. WDR is open or closed. Oh, you can see the difference with wide dynamic range off, can't you? And then language, the normal reset. So let's save that. All the normal things really, not much to think about, so I'll disconnect this and we can take it off to the field. Hello! The White Snake is installed already. I'm in the field. It's shady here, but out there is gorgeous. So let's have a good fly and see how we get on.
Right, so we're up in the air, and immediately I noticed 2 things on this camera, and the first was the lines. I could see straight away we were getting some sort of noise lines on the sky there. It wasn't as visible on the grass, but that seemed to be the lighter colour of the sky. Was really able to see those lines right, and they definitely got worse under more throttle. The other thing I noticed is that I didn't seem to have the camera angled up enough, so I wasn't able to get that quick. But yeah, there was a sort of almost a pixelation. If you look at the top right corner, that looks really weird. Now, the last time I was flying this quad is when I was testing the VTX, which is still in there, which is the HDLRC forward VTX, and this was on the Foxeer Falcor 2 camera, and I wanted to go back and just look at this footage. This is the Falcor 2 here, and I didn't see anything like those lines, although the day is very different. It's sort of overcast, so that creates a different sort of noise. I would have liked to put them side by side on exactly the same day, and then I could see if this was an issue with the VTX or an issue with the camera. I tend to think from my sort of reaction in the goggles that this was down to the camera. Anyway, back to the camera on test here. So back on the Whitesnake now, and aside from that interference or noise in the camera, the actual picture it gets is pretty good. It looks like it's slightly washing out where it's got very bright colours, but it's certainly not oversaturating. We're getting quite a sort of muted amounts of greens, and we don't seem to be getting the sort of red that can appear in some cameras. So in terms of being able to see what's happening and it being able to respond to the light, that bit's pretty good. But the next thing I did after this flight was go on and tilt up a little bit more to see if I could get a bit more speed going. So angled up a bit, we can barely see the props, and this is allowing us to go a bit faster. And I'm still seeing those lines in my goggles. It's one of these things that has turned out a little bit nicer on the DVR, where you can't quite see it as well as I was seeing it. But my sort of gut reaction is if I can see it and it's sort of annoying me, then it must be there a lot more than other cameras. But again, view through the camera is absolutely fine aside from this noise. I can totally see where I'm going. It gives a fairly good field of view. Again, 2.1 to me these days seems just a little bit narrow. I would like something like a 1.8 really to do better. But yeah, quite reasonable. Not a problem in what it's given me other than that noise. It just seems to be more susceptible to motor or ESC noise than the other cameras I've used on this particular quad. And we're on battery free now, and I've kind of split the difference on the angle, so it's slightly higher than it was on the original but lower than it was on the second one. Again, just trying to get into some shade and stuff, and it's working pretty nicely here. I can't work out if the lines are appearing on a lighter colour or it's just noise that I can't see over the grass and stuff. One thing I find it quite useful to do, especially with all these cameras with the CMOS sensor, is sort of thrust up a little bit higher and look out to see what we've got, because quite often I can pick up some jello on these cameras, and this one's not doing too bad actually. I can see a little bit of shakiness there if I look at the tree lines, but overall pretty good. And that's pretty much how I describe flying of the camera. Pretty good, not outstanding, but I really did notice the noise there. You can see I'm just checking the sun just to make sure we don't get any dark patches, and that bit all looks good. So light handling's good, but electronic noise handling, that doesn't seem so good to me. The landings wasn't too bad depending where you got the angle. Of course that high grass isn't helping me, but I managed to bring it down pretty much okay. So it's just gone 10 o'clock, and because it's pretty much summer solstice, it's still not what you'd call dark, but it's definitely past dusk. So we're going to try the little Whitesnake camera and see how it does in these lighting conditions. If it looks particularly light, we'll come out when it's a bit darker as well, because I just tested the camera and it looked like it might as well be daytime. So some of these can do darker. Let's see what this Whitesnake can do. So for this dust type condition, it's pretty good. It's lighting up the area, but we're still seeing those lines. It's a lot noisier. It's interesting those lines are there, because I thought it might be down to the amount of throttle, but obviously I've got no throttle on at all here. I've just got it powered up, and it's still getting out some weird lines. So I've gone over to black and white because people like black and white, and this is not bad. You don't get much contrast. I know some people like to fly in black and white mode instead of colour, which is why I show it, but again I can just see those lines. It tends to smear a little bit, but overall it's not bad. I tend to think it looks a little bit blockier, a little bit noisier, but not too bad. Okay, now it's dark. I caught to 11. You can't see it, but I'm holding the quad. Let's test this out now. It's probably dark. It's probably darker than anybody would choose to fly unless they were doing actual night missions, but we'll give it a try, see what happens. Yeah, this seems a bit too much for this camera. It's really sort of blocky, really noisy, and even my rapid fire seems to be trying to lose sync. Very, very noisy, and you can't get any details in the contrast there. But we'll try flicking over to the black and white mode to see what we get from that. And we get some sort of almost retention on the screen there. It looks like smears. I don't like it. I think this is okay for dusk, but I think any proper low light stuff this is too much for it. This is not really what you'd call anything flyable. So no, not a night camera. So that was the Eachine Whitesnake. What did we think of it? Well, it was pretty good, but it left me feeling like that noise was a problem. The good thing on this one is, well, currently it's very cheap because they've got an offer on. But if that goes back up in price, it could be more expensive than the Caddx Ratel, in which case I'd say always buy the Caddx Ratel because it's far better. In fact, it's not that far, even with the cheapest price, to being a Caddx Ratel price, and I'd still say buy the Caddx Ratel. So that's its problem. Although it's pretty good, its colour reproduction is good. Sometimes it felt a little bit washed out, but it certainly wasn't oversaturating the colours. That was good. Its low light performance was it wouldn't fly at low light. Its general performance was okay, but I was just left feeling it was noisy. That noise on the sky, that sort of sometimes a little pixelation, sometimes those horizontal lines, they just weren't there on other cameras. So kind of, even with the cheap price, I feel you could just spend a couple of quid more and get a much better camera. So that's the only problem with it, is the fact that it's kind of middle of the road and it had a couple of flaws that you could get round by spending just like a little bit more. But it's up to you. I've showed you the footage, you decide. I would go for the 1.8mm lens. As I said, this is the 2.1. It feels a little bit narrow, especially when you're having to point up for landing and stuff. Anyway, this was kindly supplied by Banggood for review, so thanks to Banggood, and you can find details down below to this where you can check out more detail. I might just put in a link to the Caddx Ratel as well, because I think that's just a fantastic camera, still my favourite camera. Anyway, hope that review's been helpful, and I will catch you next one. Bye for now. Well, you've made it to the end of the video, so thanks once again for watching. If you like what you saw, then please consider subscribing, and if you really like what you saw, then be sure to check out the link to my blog for a variety of ways in which you can help support this channel.